Hello guys and welcome back to this new video. Today we are going to talk about Moche. So first of all, I am not entirely sure. I think this is the pronunciation. I hope not to screw it up just from the start. But with that being said, Moche is a culture that is mostly unknown nowadays. Now, unknown, yes, but extremely interesting. So, don't miss out this episode. Let's start. Moche is a pre-Aztec type of culture. We think that it developed between 100 before Christ to 840, and that disappeared due to possibly eruption or natural disasters anyway. Of this culture, there are a few things that remain there to testify their presence. First of all, one of them is for sure pyramids. And we do know that besides pyramids, they were mostly dedicated to agriculture. Agriculture was at the time the main source of their livelihood. But they're also famous for their architecture, specifically for their aqueducts, right? Moche were like something like a 25,000 people, and they were mostly farmers, corn and potatoes farmers, but they were also quite decent, quite good as sailors. But most of all, they were extremely exceptional and also extremely extravagant for our normal standard criteria. They were engraving, and they were creating ceramics and engraving and painting on pottery. Pottery are different sorts that don't has a common theme, and that common theme is sex. And this is what leads us today to talk about Moche. Before we delve into all of that, we also need to say something about their religion. So let's start. Their religion is constituted in a way that we do have two main gods, and then we have one minor god. The minor deity is called the decapitator god, and it's very easy to guess why it is called like that. But let's move on and let's discuss for a second the first one. The first god in question is called Alpike. It is a very important divinity to whom human sacrifices are dedicated. It is depicted with ferocious fangs and also with a jagger headdress. And when we talk about human sacrifices, it is important to specify that those were not just sacrifices of prisoner of war, but also Moche citizens were sacrificed in honor to Alpike in order to appease the god. He was responsible or considered responsible for natural disasters, so it was extremely important that the god was happy at all times, so to speak, right? And that is why in ceramics and in pottery of sorts, we do have a constant representation of torture and human sacrifices. There were also, exactly for these reasons, priests. Priests were also women, and so here we are trying to imply that there was some sort of equality between the sexes, at least for what concerned this aspect of their life. And anyway, priests would drink the blood of their victims, and so from that kind of standpoint, there isn't much of a difference between Moche and Aztec. They're all very well known for their brutality. There was also a second deity that was considered by some even more important than Alpike. The second deity's name is Si, and it is considered to be responsible for regulating daily activities, right? So not only the cycles of time, like seasons, but also everything that concerned agriculture. So it was considered to be extremely important. The third divinity is the so-called decapitator god. Now, it is easy to understand why he would be called that way, and the reason is that actually they have found at the foot of the pyramids about 40 bodies, right? And it has been seen that those bodies had fractures and mutilations of sorts. The bodies belonged to males that researchers, archaeologists do believe were sacrificed to this divinity. Now, this is a culture where, and we said this at the beginning, where sex is extremely celebrated. So, to understand why and how, we have to go to the Archaeological Museum of Lima in Peru. There is a section that is completely dedicated to the more erotic part of their potteries and ceramics. That consists of pots, jugs, different tools for drinking and eating that they were using, and there is a common theme there. There is all the representations that are present that we can see. All of those, we would not hesitate them to call them pornographic, borderline with disturbing, right? Because those represent scenes of orgies, but also sodomy, but also group masturbations. There's also sex on skeletons, and so on and so forth. So there are a bunch of different pictures. But this is for us a good reminder that we should not and cannot judge a culture just for what is our standpoint, our morality, our perspective on things. And things actually may also look one way, but they might reveal to be something else, like in this case. Indeed, according to the archaeologists and researchers from the University of Oregon in particular, the representation of sex was not done and should not be conceived from an erotic standpoint. But in a completely different, completely almost opposite sense. The representation of penetration between male and female is very sporadic. Likewise, the so-called phallus erectus, so basically the erection, is also very rare, which in turn implies that we do need a different sort of explanation for so much of sex being represented on pots, jugs, and all the ceramics that we can retrieve from this culture. And the explanation, the theory that I have come up with is that sex actually represents in this culture a form of exchange between macrocosm and microcosm, and it is indeed this exchange that gets celebrated. So they believed that dead and gods would spend most of their time having sex. And so, therefore, pleasure was somewhat marginal to their culture, whereas the exchange was much more relevant because it is the exchange that allows them to have balance, to maintain this perennial balance that is life. However, this interpretation was completely missing in the perspective, if we can define it like that, of the Viceroy in 1570, Viceroy Francisco of Peru. And he arrived there and saw the whole situation, the so-called test marriages, known as quechua, sodomy, masturbation, and other practices. And all of them were pretty much present and common among Aztecs. And there was absolutely no shame coming from the Catholic religion and the Catholic point of view, right? So the Viceroy began to frustrate the, not he himself, but of course he gave the order to frustrate the inhabitants who kept those practices alive. But we have to think that the Aztec might have inherited all of that from the Moche culture, and so that had actually very ancient and deep roots. And this is an important point for us because it enlightens us on the fact that we should always put on aside our moral values, the values which with which we grew up, and we should actually have an explanation, an interpretation that is consistent with the times and with the culture that we're actually studying. But with that being said, this is all, right? So I hope this has brought some fun to you guys. I definitely had a lot of fun doing this, but also some understanding about such a old and ancient culture. With that being said, if you get the chance, go and visit the archaeological museum in Lima and in general Peru. Everybody said it's a very nice country, so why not doing that? With that being said, also I would like to invite you to subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think, what you make out of the culture of sex in Moche. If you know or are aware, or you guys are thinking about different explanation that can make sense of all the ceramics. And with that being said, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, comment below, hit the notification bell. We are going to talk some more next time in another video about a completely different topic. With that being said, guys, bye bye.